One. Now, our parents look after us for years, but what happens when they can no longer look after themselves? Families under strain. Talk to Kilroy next. Ainsley's creating a dreamy pudding to satisfy a rather sweet tooth, and a spicy shepherd's pie for a busy working mum. That's in an hour. Then a party organiser fancies a change from brunette to blonde, but with her fiancé recognise her. Lots of encouragement from Larry in Looking Good at 10:30. It's all coming on BBC One. So, first on BBC One, here's Kilroy.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hello. Hello and good morning. How old's your mother? You worried about her getting older, not being able to properly look after herself? Would you let her move in with you? Or will you face the really agonising decision about whether or not to put her in a residential home? Which is what you're going through now, Pam, isn't it? What's happening?
I've got an 85-and-a-half-year-old mother who's been in hospital on and off for a year now. And the last time she was in for 3 months. We actually, at one point in time, went and said our goodbyes to her, but the hospital have pulled her through and she's back home now. With a tremendous lot of help from social services, OTs, and I can't praise them enough for the support and care that they've given to us as well as my mother. But at the end of the day, the stress and the strain on my sister and I is very, very difficult to cope with at times. My mother's very single-minded in the fact that she will not, come what may, go into a home residential care. Now, she can't be made to do anything she doesn't want to do because that's a legal provision. But we both feel her quality of life and her safety, which is of the utmost importance to us, would be much better cared for than it is at the present moment, because she has care people coming in the morning.
She's in her own home at the moment.
She's in her own home.
Which you and her sister kind of visit and share responsibility for as well.
Yes, we've been going regularly, but we have been advised by the appropriate services to perhaps actually, now at this point in time, actually start and back off a little bit to perhaps prove to her that she really can't manage on her own. But otherwise, yes, we have been going in every day.
So you think the best thing for her would be to go in residential care?
Yes, I do. I do. For her own safety and for our peace of mind.
Go on, Sandra. Hang on, Sandra. Hang on, Sandra.
Has your mother got her own home?
She has got her own home.
Sell the house. Take her home with you. Sell your house. Buy a bigger house. Look after your mother. You've only got one mother. And another thing, how can you sit there and say you've got stress? You don't know what stress is.
No, you don't.
You're a human being. Your mother is your mother. You can have a million fathers. Your mother is your mother. You've got a husband. You can open your door and say bye-bye, go home, make a cup of tea. That's where your stress leaves you.
I would do anything for my
take
mother
her home,
to take
look after her and stop moaning. You've got a husband.
I'm not
and
moaning.
you've got another sister.
No, I obviously haven't
her.
gone as far through the care system with a relative as you have done.
No.
But there's nothing
I have
wouldn't...
not got 1 inch of help. 24 hours a day for 8 weeks, I looked after my mother. I bathed her, I dressed her, I put makeup on her. She is 92. I'll go in a home before my mother would go in a home.
No, just talk to her.
I came home from America at 45. I was an entertainer. I had worked all over the world and I had my own chat show in Los Angeles. I hadn't seen my mother for 5 years. I had been on the phone to her, etc. She'd had a lot of falls. When I came back, she's living in a council bungalow, right? And splitting her head open all the time. I have an older brother and an older sister, but it was out of the question. They couldn't take care of her. I, being the youngest and the unmarried one, it fell upon me. It's not a life that I would have chosen for. It cost me my career, my health, and financial ruin. And many people will know that once you are a carer, long term, I took care of her for 12 and a half years, you never ever reach a point of health, good health again. Any doctor will tell you that. It's hard graft.
I've realised
She's
that
dead
over the
now. My
last
mother
year.
died 4 years ago, right? But
Yeah.
I had her. I had the benefit of my mother, my beautiful mother, who treated me magnificently as a child for
That's
that
why-
extra 12 and a half years. And
Yeah.
if she could come back, I'd do the whole thing again, I promise you.
Yeah.
Do you go to work?
No, I don't.
Oh, you're very lucky. How would you like to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, get in your car loaded with stuff,
On a
go
regular
over
basis. She's been up at
places
2
like
o'clock in the morning.
Bridgewater,
Yes, I
We've been over
2,500 miles
Yeah.
away, and then when you finish the fare, you get in your car at 11 o'clock at night and drive home again, and then get in your car and then go back for the next day.
I have
Did your
been,
mum's...
No excuse.
your
You
mum-
had help from the council.
Sandra, your mum's 92.
92. My mother's had a new heart, 2 new hips, 2 cataracts in 8 years. But my mother didn't go in care.
But your mum doesn't need the kind of care that...
Yes, she does
Does she?
now. Yes, she does. But you're lucky. You've got people coming in.
I appreciate the care,
She does.
and
No.
I appreciate the amount of services and the support that we can get from the
lucky.
Nottinghamshire County Council. I more than appreciate that, and I can't praise them enough, because without their support, yes, it would have affected my health and my sister's health far more than it actually has done.
What's it done to you?
There is nothing that I wouldn't do for
You
my
look well
mother.
to me.
Getting
What's
up
the
at
matter
any
with you?
time of
Hang
the
on, do you
night
want to
and
look
day.
ill then?
What's the matter
Do you want
with
us to look ill?
You want me
Any
to give you a
time
list
of
of
the
what's the
night and
matter
day
with
to help
me?
my
I haven't
mother.
got time to be ill.
And that is why I am doing everything possible at this
Look
present
after her.
moment to keep her at home,
Take
because
her home.
that is where
Don't
she
put her in
wants
a
to
home.
be. And possibly that is
Let Pam
where
finish.
she will be the happiest till the end of her
Will
days
she?
come. At the end of the day, I have to think what is best. Well, we do, my sister and I, for her safety.
She doesn't
Her
want to
safety
get
is
in a home.
almost
And
as
you look
also
after
of
her.
the
And
utmost
you also have
importance.
to look at what's best for you and your husband and your family, don't you?
Yes, a lot of people would think that was selfish, though.
No, I don't think it's selfish. I don't think it's selfish.
anyone else?
Selfish at all.
Your mother.
Hang on.
I came on holiday 2 years ago. While I was away at the shop, I came back home. My mum had fallen. She dislocated her hip. She was in hospital for 6 weeks. I came from Canada. I'm still here 2 years later looking after my mum. And I would dearly like to go back to Canada and continue my life with my home, but instead I've had to take a part-time job to keep my home going in Canada so I can stay here and look after my mum. But I'm now getting to the pitch where I say, Mum, you've got to consider going in a home. And then some days I look at her and I say, I can't do it. It's easy for you to say that. It's very
Hang on, I
easy
can't
for
get you.
you
I
to
can't get
say
you from them,
that.
love.
But you've got to remember, other people have got a life as well. We don't know what kind of life you've got. Have you got help? Have you got a husband?
No.
I don't. I've nobody, but I've got my grandchildren. I want
And
to
you've
see my
sacrificed
grandchildren.
your other family.
That's
Your
right.
grandchildren and your children, right.
I look at my mum and I know that I owe her something.
Jo?
We need to look at what the safety issues are, and I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I think when we were talking about this, do you want to put your parents in a home? If we asked ourselves from the heart,
Nobody does.
Nobody wants to do
ever
that.
would want to put
But nobody wants to do that
themselves in a
because that's
home.
easy.
That's
The problem
easy
is you don't want to, but you feel that your life isn't going to, she's not going to have a life if she doesn't.
Yeah.
That's
But
what she's saying.
But it's the
And
quality,
the quality of life for you, and no, but for you too.
of the others.
I think
I mean, that's not unimportant, is it? I don't think that's
No, because
unimportant. I think your life with your husband isn't important.
Yeah,
I think my life. I've got an 80-year-old mother. She's watching this, and I've got to really be careful what I say. I tell you I have, because she walks around with that damn stick, and she'll start whacking me with it when I'm walking in the kitchen. Yesterday, she picked that up. But my wife is more important. My wife is more important. And my quality of my life with my wife is more important. You know? And I would say that about my own kids too. I haven't had kids to look after me in my old age. I've had kids so they can lead their own life, leave the nest, fly, do everything for themselves. Right. So you mustn't feel guilty about it.
Well, I mean, if I can just say, if anyone thinks that we're selfish about it at all, there have been occasions where we've had to go over to her mother's house because she's been stuck on the stair lift because the batteries are packed up to sort that out. The television doesn't work, this is packed up. We're going over there on a regular basis. So is Pam's sister. But not only that, we got married in December last year. And apart from our honeymoon, we've had one day out. I'm glad you feel sorry for me.
I'm a lot younger than you.
Suffragettes. Hey, what do you want to say? Hang on, what he called you to?
I think that's absolutely fine.
Elderly suffragettes.
The philosophy that you're spouting out, you go on like suffragettes, right? Each individual circumstances dictate exactly what happens. Your circumstances may not be the same as mine. But nevertheless, don't you try and hang a guilt trip on me because my mum is in care. I don't feel guilty about it.
You do feel guilty sometimes, don't you?
I had to make the decision for my mum to go into a home, a residential home. And the first time we put her into a home, unfortunately, it was not a very good home. But I had to make the decision to put her in there, and then I had to make the decision to move her again. She always lays the guilt trip on me when I go. I'm not stopping here, but I can't do anything about it. I can't take her myself, I haven't got the room. And it's such a terrible guilt that I feel when I go, when I get home, and it's never, ever off my mind.
What were you muttering about, Sandra?
I was saying, do you have to live in a mansion? You can live in a one-room and still look after somebody.
You need to be practical.
My mother had children.
Hang on a sec.
You need to be practical. And
I was practical.
No, every individual case needs to be looked at. And lots of people
Your mum, Grace is your mum, isn't she, Yvonne? Yeah.
And every case needs to be looked at. And there needs to be guidelines because there's so many guilty people sitting here today. And everybody's going to have a little piece of guilt, whatever happens, whatever care they have.
However good you do it.
And I think that initially, prior to any decisions being made, there needs to be input from lots of different people, so your family as a whole, it can stay as a family.
Did you feel guilt then, Sue?
Yes, definitely. I had to, with my brothers and sisters, we had to put my father in a home. And I hadn't long been married, and I had a 100% mortgage. I needed to work to be able to pay my mortgage for a roof over my head. My father didn't have his own house. It was a question of, I wanted him with me. He was a hemiplegic. He was paralysed totally down one side. There was no way he could have managed stairs. There was no way I could have had him at home. But there was no way I could get my head round it. I always felt guilty. He's dead now. The first home he went into, he wasn't very happy, like your mum. And we ended up having to put him into a second home, more of a nursing home than a residential home. And he loved it. And the nurse that he had with him, he absolutely idolised. She was absolutely brilliant to him.
And was it better for him?
It was, yes.
I have put my father-in-law in the nursing home.
You put your father into?
Just a week ago. And still I feel guilty sometimes. But it reached to that point that I had to put him in a nursing home.
How old was he?
86.
When you say reached the point, in what way?
He's suffering from Alzheimer's. And he gets incontinent all the time. And he has got a catheter.
Yeah. Sandra, turn
He doesn't sleep all night. We haven't had a good night's sleep since last 7 years now.
How old are you? Do you mind me asking?
53.
53. So you're young, like. We're young, aren't we? We're young. But you're getting on a bit. And you're getting the aches and the pains. What I'm driving at is it's not easy to look after somebody in that situation at the age you are and the strain. And so for you it was what was best for your father, but best for you too.
Yes.
What's wrong with that?
I have many friends in Manchester. One particular friend, Carol, her mother was incontinent, Alzheimer's, but she looked after her. She didn't live in a mansion, but she looked after her till the day she died. There is a way. Many years ago, we didn't have homes. We had what you called old homes. And they were terrible. But at the end of the day, this is my opinion, there is always a way. When my mother fell through the back door, a plate double glazed window, she is 92, my mother, and they took her to the hospital. She did a femur in stitches. When I saw the hospital, I said, "You're not staying here." I took her home, I brought her downstairs, I looked after her 24 hours a day. After 4 days, I ended up a matron from nothing. I didn't get no help from any councils. All they kept saying is, "We've got no money." Then I asked for a commode.
Perhaps she hasn't got the same kind of physical strength that you have. Perhaps she hasn't got the same...
You get it, you find it.
Perhaps she hasn't got the same stamina that you've got. Perhaps she...
It's affecting my health now. Because if I don't put him in a nursing home, then I think sooner or later I had to end up in a nursing home. That's the situation.
This young lady here, excuse me.
Young?
I've actually worked.
Yeah.
I've worked in a residential home as a care assistant, and I honestly believe that in some cases it's better for people to go into a residential home where people are fully trained, know exactly what they're doing, and it's better for that person and for the family to know they're being looked after well. I'm not saying you didn't look after your mother well. You probably did. But what I'm saying is some people can't do that, and it's better for those people to put the parents in an old people's home.
I've actually had it from all sides, because my father lives with me, my husband, myself and my wee boy, and my mother unfortunately had Alzheimer's like yourself, and I was working full time. I had a child of 3, I had a husband, I had my own house, I had my mum and dad's house to look after, and it came to the point where my mother was actually, I think that lady said down there, she was really a danger, and I was so worried. She was going out during the night with no clothes on. My father had suffered a stroke and was unable to run up and down after her. She was going shopping with a toilet bag full of money and buying a fries cream and tipping £3,000 up on the counter for it and stuff like this. And fortunately, the town that we're from, a lot of people knew her, so they would phone myself and say to me, "Fiona, you'll have to go and get your mum. She's here, she's there, she's..." And at the end of the day, to be honest, I was frightened that she would either be mugged or, it just became, I had to know she was safe. I couldn't go on holiday, I couldn't go out for a night.
As the gentleman said, every case is different.
But you were very passionate. You were very emotional, right?
Yes, I was.
You were laying down the law for everybody.
Yes, I was.
You weren't saying any cases. You were saying, "This is what you've got to do." Really? Hang on. You were wrong. You were wrong.
I was wrong. I was wrong because
I think you're brilliant saying that. It's brilliant.
That's excellent.
Why were you brilliant? No. So hang on. Kilroy changed your mind. Being on Kilroy has. What was it? What was it that made you say you were wrong?
Because every case is different, and I got emotional.
Because you looked how lovely she is, and you know there's nothing evil about that woman, don't you?
I don't think there's anything evil about
exactly.
anybody.
All about my friend here. You know that she talked about. You could see that the pain of what they had to do about their parents.
Yes.
Were you wrong?
I think I was lucky.
Were you wrong? No. Can you see this, Sandra? Don't get emotional.
No, I can't, because I've lived my life up and I've had a fantastic life.
But that's
I've
for
got
you.
no life.
But that's for you. Yeah, but listen to me. That's for you. And whatever you did the right thing for you and for your mum. And that's...
She's my mother. It's got to be done.
It's your duty. It's my duty. Okay. But do you not feel that even... No.
Robert, may I say one thing? I cannot see it. If it was if that lady on her own was sat there, any lady on her own that was sat down and had nobody, then I could say yes. This lady said, "Her mother's got a home, sell the house, sell your house, buy a bigger house." How old is your mother?
She's 85 and a half.
How long do you think you're going to have her
She's
for?
not got very much longer
Why
to
don't
live.
you treasure it and just
trying to help her as much as I can.
She can't hear you all at once.
How can she sell her house without her permission?
You can get round that very, very...
Grace! Grace, you tell her, Grace. Nobody's just talking about Grace. Get round that, Grace. We'll serve your house, Grace.
You're now treading on dangerous ground because
are, yeah.
she would have to be sectioned.
Yeah.
And
you'd have to have power
we are not going to do that. And there's nothing. She is so mentally. She is so astute. She's a wonderful lady. It's just her body that's letting her down.
What do you do in this situation? Hard decision. None of us want to be faced with it, do we? One of us never ever want to be faced with it.
I find it quite sad listening to this, and I don't wish to be unkind. My mother is nearly 82. She's lived with me for 10 years. She is still fit and active. We didn't wait till she became ill.
This is Mom with you now.
Yeah. Holding my hand, stop it shaking. I didn't need to persuade her to sell her house. We discussed it. It took 18 months. We built an extension on our bungalow. She has independence. She has her own lounge, her bedroom, wash area. She has her own telephone line. The plugs are at waist height. We went into it in great detail. I'm married, I have a husband, I have a son of 13 who doesn't know any different. His grandmother has always lived with us. They both benefit from that. And she was still fit and able when we asked her to move in, and thank God she still is now. She is absolutely wonderful.
But there's two things there.
I did not feel any sense of duty.
But there's two things there that you've said that make all the difference. Two at least. One is that she had the financial wherewithal to make the decision to have the extension, to do all that. A lot of people haven't got that. Money makes a big difference. It doesn't make you happier, but it can get rid of a lot of the problem. And you've solved the problem with money there, one problem. She's also fit.
Yes.
That's a big difference, isn't it?
It is.
It's like my mother. My mother can be very cantankerous, but at least she's fit. But if you had to kind of start dealing with somebody in the way that Pam is, then it puts a different kind of stuff. Your mother is an asset.
She is.
Right?
She's priceless.
Your mother is a contribution to the household and to your son. Her mother, without being in any disrespectful, is
somebody is
a drain.
Their attitude of mind changes to you. Their attitude of mind to everything changes. She's, although she is very sort of alert, mind-wise, as Alan said, it's her body that's letting her down, basically. But her attitude, she's non-compromising. She's not going to budge an iota. She is not going to meet any of us even a quarter of the way. So?
That's true. How long has she got? So what?
She hasn't got very long.
So what? So she says black's white or green's yellow, so what? I laugh at it.
But isn't this world basically compromised? We have to make compromises.
Your mother's had her day.
She's my mother.
Let her do what she wants.
Yes,
she had me because
for a few days. She had me because she wanted me.
This lady over here, when your mum gets, well, if she ever gets really ill or anything, will you ever consider then putting her into an home?
Absolutely not.
Easy to say, though. Easier said than... No. I'm not arguing with you. It is. Because we can say that. Because I don't want to minimise what Pam is having to go through. But when you do have to, let's say you for whatever the reasons, who should pay? Ken? Then you have to put your mum and dad in a home?
Who should pay? Certainly my mum shouldn't be made to pay twice, which she's now doing. She worked hard all of her life. She's now in residential care. She's paid her subscriptions towards society. And now, because she's mean tested, assessed, that's what the fancy word is. Not means tested, assessed. 3 years ago, Tony Blair stood there at a party conference and he said, I don't want to live in a Britain where that elderly people have to sell everything to subscribe to their own upkeep in nursing homes. Where are we getting? A Royal Commission? Splendid. They can't even agree to disagree. Where do we go from there?
Who should pay, Joan?
I think it should be a mixture between the individual and the state, and what we need to debate is where that balance is. And I actually have many constituents...
Well, we haven't decided yet.
the Royal Commission
We're having a debate. Never mind the Royal Commission. Well, let's give the government over to a Royal Commission. If the government can't make decisions, the government makes decisions. At the moment, old people are paying, aren't they? At the moment, old people are having to sell their homes. Is that the right thing to do?
Some old people are paying and others aren't. The major problem that we've got, and these are my constituents in Blackpool, they settle in Blackpool, they go to Cleveland, they buy the bungalow by the sea, and then they find that they have to sell that when they're then going into residential care. We need to ask questions about that capital limit. Can we increase it so that they don't have to sell the houses? Should we be looking at paying for nursing care?
You're asking questions, you know. This is the kind of thing we ask MPs. We don't expect our members of Parliament and our government to ask us questions. We expect them to tell us things, to tell us what they're doing and why. Not... When you ask questions like that, that's buck passing, Joan. I used to do that. I know, Joan, I know what it is. And when I used to adopt that tone of parliament, it's because I was on a sticky wicket and I just wanted to curry favour. Really, Joan?
If I came in here
okay, let's put the question. Let's put the question in a different way.
Every single member in this room would have a different answer.
Let's put the question in a different way.
And it's important that every member in this room contributes to the debate.
Let's put the question directly to you then. Let's put the question in a different way.
Put the question in a different way.
Okay, do you want to do that? 3 times I've said that because I'm trying to get wordy. Is it right that they should have to sell their homes to pay for residential care?
No. There is the answer. You don't need a Royal Commission. Here is the answer.
But what does Jones say? What does the government say?
I think that we should talk about nursing care and residential care.
We'll come on to that. We'll come on to that.
You've asked me my opinion, Robert, and my opinion is that I think it's absolutely balmy that we get nursing care in hospitals free at the point of delivery, and if you go into a nursing home, it's not. So my personal opinion is that that should be paid for. I think there's a much more difficult argument about personal care, about social care, because then you have to look at not just care in a residential home, but also the care that people get in their own homes.
At the moment, we're not talking about all that. We'll come on to staff and all this. What we're talking about is if you've got to go into a residential home, should the elderly relative or their family pay, nursing home, or the government pay?
Yes, my mother's just had to sell her bungalow because she's gone into a nursing home. You know, sadly, I couldn't look after. We're sort of 3 hours journey apart from each other, and she's in a wheelchair now, so it's difficult for me to be able to look after her in home. I've got a 12-year-old. So she's had to go into the nursing home.
Why she had to sell her house, her home, a bungalow?
To cover the 500 plus nursing home fees a week that it costs. And so the bungalow is just about being sold now. The debt's now over 4,000, but the nursing home know that they're going to get the money, so they're all right about it. But my mum said that I could have the bungalow so I could be near her and near my sisters and my 12-year-old boy. And so I thought, oh good, I can be near Mum and help her and see her so much. But now I can't because they've taken it. They've said, no, you can't have it. It's got to be sold, and that's what's been happening to it. So I've had to pay £30 to take my little boy down. So now I can only see her once a month because I've had to fit in with the visiting hours of the home. And I've tried 2 years to get a council exchange because I'm in a council property. I asked Eastbourne Council, could I have a council home? As the government had taken my mother's bungalow, can I have a council exchange? Oh no, you're not a resident. I said I would be if I, you know. They said no, and your mother was in her own home, so we can't help you. Where I live in the Western Council, no, they can't help me. You have to try for an exchange yourself. So everywhere I try to get down to my mother, I find a block. And I can't give up my council house.
What do you feel about the government's view?
Well, why take my mum's little bungalow?
Answer it, Joan.
Why take it that she worked hard? She's 79, nearly 80, and my dad, all right, I'm going to say, fought for this country for 6 years in the war from a boy of 19, and everyone's going to say, oh, the war again. But to that generation, the war is important. He worked hard for that.
No, I encounter exactly the same sort of passion amongst my own constituents, so we're all aware of it. But we also have to live in a world of choices, and that's why I go back to getting that balance right between what an individual should pay and what the state should pay. Because at the end of the day, if we were to pay for all personal residential care, you're talking about more than £1 billion a year. In priorities. You're probably the same person who would say to me, I also want more spent in the hospitals and more spent on nursing.
Hang on, Ken. Let Yvonne first, Ken, then you.
I work in a nursing home, and I'm acutely aware that you're saying that people need to make choices. they've got no help to make choices. They are left high and dry. Now, I'm aware that the medical profession are aware that in years to come, the elderly population are going to increase. And they're aware. I'm shortly to start a nursing degree for care of the elderly because nurses are aware. What are the government doing?
Are you aware of the Care Standards Bill that is currently going through Parliament, which will address many of the issues that you're actually talking about? For the first time ever...
You mean that a mum doesn't have to sell a bungalow?
What it will mean is...
I'm sorry, that's the issue we're talking about. That's the issue we're talking about. For the moment, we may come on to other issues, but for the moment, Joan, that's the issue we're talking about. Will her mum not have to sell her bungalow? The Standards Bill doesn't deal with that, so it won't.
No,
what do you want to say to the Member of Parliament?
My father didn't have a house to sell, right? But for years, he worked and he saved for his retirement. He took out a private pension fund along with his government pension fund, along with his army retirement, because he was in the war, right? I watched him have possibly only 4 holidays with my mum in his entire lifespan because he was bringing us children up and because he was saving for his retirement, right? When he got into a situation where he had to go into a home, he had to be put into a private one because his income was too much. He didn't have a house to sell. I believe, and I can't swear on this, but I believe my brother even had to help out financially because he had his government pension, his own pension and his army pension, basically. And that is wrong.
Yeah, the government has announced that as part of the comprehensive spending review, which will be announced in the summer, they're actually going to be looking at all these issues of funding. And I am making representations to the government on behalf of my constituents, and I would urge everybody else to do it because that's the opportunity when the government is looking at future spending and saying, this is our priority, help us in it. And certainly the people who I represent, who live in the bungalows by the sea,
I'm sorry, Ken. I'm sorry. Go on.
You talk about people having to pay for these things. My father, he worked all his life. He was always frugal. Because he got so much money, he had to pay for everything. And I do strongly object to having that. It's only the fact I am living at the ex-council house that they couldn't take that away from him. He's dead now. He died at 89 in January. And it really upsets me. I think, all right, so some of the government could pay for it. We could pay for some of it. But to have to pay for the whole lot, it's not on.
No, and that's an issue that's a viewpoint I have great sympathy with, honestly.
Well, I think at the end of the day, you must ask whose responsibility are our parents? Are they the government's responsibility or are they ours?
Well, what's the answer?
And I feel they're our responsibility. If the government at the moment are not helping them, we must do everything to help them. I wouldn't like to ask government for anything.
Surely, through the contributions that we make through our working life, that is actually making our contribution partially for our old age. And people who make
it was called national insurance.
And people who make provisions for themselves by taking out private pensions. There again, I mean, that's another subject, excuse me. But you pay your tax on your money that you earn. You pay to go into a private pension to help yourself when you get old. And then when you get your pension, you get taxed again. And then the government sort of mortify.
That's the issue at the end of the day.
But isn't it our responsibility to make your parents
responsibility because I can go back to the 60s, the third my child, my husband, I can then go on to my mum, looking after her, then on to my dad, which I am now. Every single Saturday I spend going to my father. I do everything from my home, telephoning for transport to take him for his checkup.
I appreciate that, and the government should help you where they can.
What do you say?
But you are doing for your own mum, not your neighbour's mum. So what is the big thing about it? For your child, for your children you are doing, for your parents you are doing, it's your duty.
I am doing it for my grandchildren. I've got autistic grandchildren and I'm still there helping my daughter.
And you're accepting responsibility. But the thing is, everyone respects... Everyone accepts responsibility.
In your culture, this is a way that people do. You're so close.
That's true, but it's not about culture at the end of the day.
When you live at a distance, I have to drive from where I live in Bracknell to Chiswick.
But it was also part of our culture. Our culture, we're all English here. Are you English? They're English. Remember that, they're English.
What I'm saying is...
All our culture was extended families all together, wasn't it? We all lived in the same street. You had your aunts and uncles and your sisters.
We're everywhere now.
Because of this perspective that culture's drifted.
Come here, you sit there. Sit there. What do you mean, what happened?
What happened? You said it's an extended part of your culture.
It was called industrialisation.
So what happened?
That families got split up by factories, by careers, by universities, by going away.
No, but there's no excuse. At the end of the day, right, our parents brought us into the world. Our mother brought us into the world, yeah? Our mother, if it weren't for our mother...
But hang on, but we didn't ask our mother to bring us into the world.
We didn't ask. That's hearsay. That's a cop-out. That's a cop-out.
It's true.
I don't care.
I don't care about that.
No one else.
Don't care about it.
Everyone accepts responsibility for their children, for their spouses. Why do we feel like we can chuck our parents on the scrap heap when they've outlived their usefulness?
I've never thrown my parents on the scrap heap.
Would you complain about children?
Listen,
complain about your husband?
Listen, no, I'm not complaining about my husband. My husband had Alzheimer's, strokes, epileptic fits. As I say, going back, while I was nursing my husband, I'm nursing a daughter with spine trouble. I'm nursing and feeding her.
Situations are difficult and they're not of our making.
I am now caring for my father.
That falls on us.
I'm now caring for my father, which I work hard for, to give him what he can so that he doesn't have to go into a nursing home.
And you're doing the right thing.
But I might be doing the right thing, but what's it doing to my health? I've been in hospital and had a colon operation. I came out of hospital at 6:30 on a Friday. I was back up there on a Saturday with 38 clips in my stomach, still caring for him.
That's very clearly a very difficult situation.
Well, that's
and we can ask the MP.
No, leave the MP through. This is much more interesting. Sit down there and you're out of the way. What were you going to say to her, my love? You've got your hand up. You were shouting to get in a minute ago.
No, I was just saying that it's not about the culture. With me, I've changed. Well, I didn't have the view that I would put my mother in a nursing home. I've worked there for the past 5 years and I have seen what goes on. And like this gentleman up there, I'm sorry, I totally disagree with you. Things in terrible... No, the boy up there who worked in the nursing home. Saying that, adequate care goes on. It doesn't, I'm sorry. I have seen so many terrible things. Kilroy, you won't believe. You will not believe what goes on.
Is it a problem with the care? Is there a problem with the quality of the care?
There isn't any.
There's a tremendous problem, and I would say that anyone who's or any elderly person who goes into a care home or a nursing home now is taking a tremendous risk. Yeah. My 90-year-old father went into a home. The home was only half a mile from where we lived. It was a very pleasant-looking place on the surface, and the only thing that was wrong with my father was he didn't sleep very well at night. And we had arranged with the home, they had promised us to discuss my father's medication with us, and if he wasn't sleeping properly, to give him a bit of TLC and a hot drink at night. It wasn't quite like that. He'd only been there a very short period of time, and he was put on very strong and debilitating drugs. Drugs which our research has now shown that were designed more for the control of psychotic people, rather than for helping a very mild-mannered, true gentleman get a decent night's kip. That's all my father wanted. Now, when we discovered that he was on these drugs, we had a word with the doctor's locum, and he was taken off these drugs, and the prescription for these drugs were cancelled. So you might think that my father didn't get those drugs anymore. The nursing home continued to give him those drugs without a prescription, Robert. My wife found this out, and I had what you might euphemistically call a discussion with the matron of the nursing home, and my father stopped.
It was heated.
It was very heated and very military.
Good.
And the drugs stopped, but within 24 hours, the home had approached another doctor and had another drug prescribed, which was even more powerful than the drug that he had received previously. As a result of his receiving that drug, he required emergency medical treatment over the weekend. I mean, this is an emergency doctor coming out with a flashing light on his Land Rover.
Totally comatose.
And during that period, when my father was receiving this drug, we were lied to daily, because my father had been reduced from being a very upright gentleman to being a drooling wreck because of this drug. And every day we said, or Anne said, What's he on?
And I was lied to day after day after day for a fortnight. I was told he was on absolutely nothing. And when he was totally comatose, when he was flat, when he couldn't open his eyes, when he couldn't breathe, when he was breathing just like this up here, they still said he was on nothing. And the emergency doctor came out, and that was when we discovered what he was on.
What's going on, Frank?
So we complained to the health authority.
Frank, what's going on with the...
And that isn't very far from where the lady in
nightmare, isn't it? I
lives.
mean, nobody's going to defend a nightmare like that. I mean, that...
Oh, they have.
No, I'm not going to defend a nightmare.
Is there a problem with care in the homes?
Well, there shouldn't be, but what's very clear this morning is it's a very emotive issue. This is the bottom line. If you have to make that decision, and it falls to all of us, it fell to me and my wife, but if you have to make that decision, then there's always an edge on it. But that aside, there's no justification for poor care. There's no justification for no regulation.
Is there a problem with care in the homes?
Yes.
What is it?
Definitely.
What is it?
Well, the word care means care. There's a lot of people that go for jobs in nursing homes, residential homes. They're not qualified. They're not dedicated. I don't say all homes.
Nobody wants to do that job.
No, it's a hard job. Caring for someone is one of...
What's the experience you've had?
Can I speak?
Yes,
You've had your share. Caring for someone is the hardest thing that anyone can do. 20, yes? Yes. Can I say something? Caring for people in a nursing home also is one of the hardest things that people can do, even in a nursing home. But that is for a carer. They're not carers, half of them.
No.
They go for a job. They're just ordinary people. They need a job. They're not vetted.
Were your parents
They're not
in a home?
vetted.
Were your parents in a home?
Yes, my mother was in a home.
What happened to your mum?
Well, my mother was in a residential home. Then she needed nursing care. She had dementia. When I went, she was in this home for 5 months. She died after 5 months. I had reservations about the home when I first went in, because the first day that I took my mother in, I was putting the things into the cupboard. A blanket fell out full of sick. Someone had been sick. There was no plug in the sink. I thought my mother may burn her hands. Also, my mother went like a zombie, like this. Yes, I can mention the drug, I think. It was Meloril.
Yes, that was the second one.
Yes.
That was the second.
And I know,
Hang on, please.
I know when my mother was in a residential home, she was on a 10 milligram dose of Meloril, which stopped the anxiety, the agitation. But I saw my mother slowly going downhill. And one day, I went there, the door was locked. And I didn't think anything about this, the door being locked, but I did ask the carer, why is the door locked on my mother? She said, well, she's sleeping and we don't want anyone to wander into the room. But my brother lives in Holland and he came to visit my mother. And he went into my mother's room. She was inside and the door was locked again. When they approached the carer said, well, she's been naughty. It's a nightmare that I have to live with. I feel that I was told when my mother had been in, 4 weeks before she died, she had very bad injuries. I was told that she'd wandered into a bedroom and fallen. Then another carer told me, no, she fell in the hall. And then another carer said, no, she fell in the lounge. And I was told that the last time, and when I went on the Wednesday, I saw my mother in bed, and I said to the staff nurse, what's the matter with my mother? And she tugged her cheek and said, she looks a bit better today, doesn't she? I said, she's dying. I said, my mother's dying. And she died on Friday.
Frank, are you satisfied with the standard of care? Are we using drugs to sedate elderly people as a kind of a way of controlling and managing it, making life easier for everybody.
We all have a concern over this. The Royal College of Physicians themselves, at the moment, we're involved with them in surveys and trials to see just what the situation is. I don't think anybody's justified. Nobody wants to support this. People should be allowed to be looked after properly in homes. And I think we've got to ask, there's one fundamental question. You've already asked who should pay. I think one of the questions we should be asking is, how much should we pay? A person, an older person in a hospital, is about £1,000 a week. An older person in a nursing home is about £330 a week. Have we got a government policy? Have we got a, this is a standard. Have we got a government policy? Have we got a continuing government policy of deliberately looking after our oldest people with the least qualified and the poorest paid staff? Is this a policy of keeping the thing down? Or should we get the proper money for the job?
Robert, can I just say that what the gentleman there has described, and one of the ladies down the front there, is absolutely appalling in a care or nursing home. But could I remind all of us here that the care and nursing facilities in this country are one of the most heavily regulated by government agencies. Can I finish, please? Thank you. Can I just finish? The first point of call, if there is a problem in the home, it is to the registered manager or the proprietor of that home.
Oh, we did that.
Hold on a second, just to address it. If you get no change out of that...
Hang on, let's...
Hold on, please.
Yeah, go on, quick.
If you get no change out of that, then you just phone up the inspection and the registration unit, and they're on the thing.
Hang on.
Hold on a minute, please. They're on the case straight away.
No, they're not.
And they, well, whether they're not... Hold on a
sorry.
second. Let me please just finish.
Go on then.
Right? They're on the case straight away if they think there's anything going adrift with the welfare of old people in a residential or nursing home. And if they're not, then you can get on to your local MP.
Get your MP! Get your MP down there! There you go! Mervyn, is there a problem with the conditions in care, residential
I think there
homes?
is. I think I'd like to go back to Frank's point. It's how much are we prepared to pay for care in residential care and nursing care homes. Far too much of this industry is an industry with a fast staff turnover, with low pay, with little training, with few incentives. And if we carry on paying peanuts, then we're... Pardon to the staff.
It's not just a question. It's not just a question of money.
It is training.
I can't put up with this because this is an excuse. Excuse me. It's not. It's about staff attitudes too, isn't it?
Please ask Frank how much gets spent on training in the average nursing care home.
Would you like me to talk
how much,
about?
Frank?
Well, we're now being required to spend 3% of our income. That's not a lot.
Is it a problem with staff?
No.
Sue?
Yes.
What's the problem with staff? Hang on, please, Sue.
The first home that my father went into, OK, he was not happy. He was not happy with the staff or anything. It was a residential home. He, as I said, needed more specialised treatment.
Why wasn't he happy with the staff?
Just general lack of care, lack of consideration, lack of politeness.
So it wasn't just training or money.
No.
It was like kind of decent, normal, civilised courtesies.
He was not treated like a normal human being.
Why aren't they treated like a normal human being? No, you don't listen to me. No. Go on, Talia.
I actually inspect and register nursing homes and private hospitals and clinics. And I have to say, I've heard today some of the issues that you've raised, and I am very, very concerned that they are not news to me. I see within my own regulatory function some very serious issues within nursing homes regarding poor quality of care and poor standards. I must say that I'm also very concerned about the training of staff. I would, if I was an engineer, never think of putting any workman on a site to do a job that was unsafe. I feel very, very strongly about the fact that there are carers that are sent or think that they can work within nursing homes caring for the elderly. Children are looked after by people who are registered.
Why are we putting
and
up with
I think the government really should take on board, and they are doing a lot of debate, there's a lot of work going on to try and rectify the situation.
Well, why are we putting up with it? If you've seen it...
Well, can I say that anyone who has a difficulty in a nursing home, the registered owner has a licence to provide care in that setting. If they do not provide the care appropriately, then the authorities should take the necessary steps after a full investigation to perhaps consider quite seriously taking away the registration of that homeowner. Anyone who has a relative in a nursing home or a residential care home, if they have difficulties, they cannot get a local resolution with the proprietor, can I just say, you come through to the registration and inspection department, but can I also say it is extremely difficult if we don't have dates and times and places of exactly what happens. But can I just take you back to that?
Nursing records, we were very fortunate. The proprietor at the beginning thought he had a problem. We have every single nursing record, which Robert can see and anyone can see afterwards. It didn't stop, you can, but it didn't stop them doing it. Because as this lady says, they lie. They lie when you go to see the places. If you go at the weekend, the flowers are out, the fruit's out, the meals look wonderful.
Beautiful. Can I say just quickly, if that is the issue, do you prosecute?
Can I tell something? If you go round, when I was in politics, I used to go to one place to another, and I could tell the difference just by going in. The good school and the not so good school, the good old people's home, because by just the feel of the place, the atmosphere, what was on the wall, what was going on, and where people were, and it all came down to staff, not money, not resources. Some of the poorest, antiquated buildings in the poorest part of the constituency, which happened to be the poorest part of the United Kingdom, were the best, happiest, liveliest schools, old people, and it was staff.
To do with training, it's definitely to do with training. Staff,
but training. It wasn't training. These weren't trained. They were just good people.
Yeah, but they are committed. They are committed. They want to care. As we've heard today, that you have to be very dedicated, and you have to understand, as we've heard today, the issues regarding. It is not an easy job.
They need to feel valued.
Yeah, they don't
get people. I'm not trained. I'm not trained. I'm a nurse and a care assistant. I'm a...
And
I've worked in a number of... I work for an agency, and I've worked in a number of nursing homes. As I say, I'm not qualified, but my dedication is there. I've been in nursing homes when the feed time, for instance, and you do have to feed some of the residents. They are unable to feed themselves. No, we don't shovel it in. What I'm saying is, yes, it is my job.
Hang on, please.
There'll be other residents there who are quite able to sit down, eat the meals, cut it up. But there's some care staff there, they'll go away and do something and they'll come back and they'll say, oh, haven't you ate that? And just take it away and put it in the bin.
So we've heard some terrible stories here today, and there's more people with more of them that we haven't actually heard from. But they're not the norm, are they? There are good homes. There are some really good people. And we don't want us to paint the picture that everything is like this. There are some good carers, some good staff, and people are being looked after really well.
Can I just quickly say that there are also many agencies that can help you make a decision, support you, and help you. There are Age Concern, Care Line. There's lots of people that will help you to make decisions.
That if you do need, or you are considering what's best
and our department takes great pains
What's your department?
meeting with the Registration and Inspection Department of a Health Authority. We take great steps to ensure that anyone who inquires, we support them as much as we possibly can. It's beyond the realms of our role, but I will say I like to think that people are in nursing homes for the right reasons. Proper assessment, proper commitment and proper placement by the staff, and that the homeowner has been clearly vetted to do the job properly.
That more or less sums it up, doesn't it? It's an awkward, horrible decision if you're confronting it, just like Pam is, of whether or not it's the right thing for Mom to have to go into home. Nobody ever wants to have to confront that issue and face that awful dilemma. Whatever you do is going to be full of anxiety, heartbreaking, as somebody just said. Of course it is. It would be made a lot easier, wouldn't it, if our members of Parliament, our government, our local authorities actually ensured that the homes, be they private or local authority, were proper, decent, civilised facilities and the staff were compassionate and trained, then it wouldn't be a difficult decision. It would be very easy. Take care of yourselves.
If you'd like to join Robert in a programme about medical mistakes, call now on 0990 100 771. Have you or a member of your family been a victim of a medical mistake? Was it a doctor, another professional or a hospital? How has it affected you? Were other people also damaged? Did the doctor or hospital apologise to you? Did you receive compensation? Has your complaint been ignored? Call 2 if you think financial compensation is not the right approach for the NHS to take.
There's Meet Top Hats, where everybody gets the chance